Hello, and welcome to this week's Drought Update, brought to you by the National Integrated Drought Information System, or NIDIS, for the Intermountain West region, or the five-state region of Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. I'm Peter Goebel with the Colorado Climate Center, and I'll be your host today. So let's start by taking a look at where drought is currently being depicted. And as you can see, we have a lot of areas shaded in yellow or tan across the five-state region. The yellow shaded areas are considered abnormally dry for this time of year, or drought conditions reflective of the 20th to 30th percentile for your surface hydrologic system, and the tan colors are reflective of 10th to 20th percentile conditions where, for instance, first percentile would be driest we've seen and 100th percentile would be wettest we've seen for this time of year. Here's a map showing the recommended changes. So outlined in black is this area where we're recommending D0, or expansion of this yellow shaded area, for abnormally dry, and we'll get into why that is. So in order to change anything, first, the perhaps most pertinent information to look at is how have things changed over the last week. So let's take a look at the precipitation that's fallen over the previous week, or October 10th to October 16th. As you can see, we've had some areas of widespread moderate or light precipitation, mainly east of the Continental Divide, up in Wyoming, as well as Colorado, all the way down to the southern border of Colorado. We see widespread areas of a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of precipitation, with higher totals near the Continental Divide. Perhaps more importantly for this drought update is that it was dry in the upper Colorado River Basin. In the Four Corners region, where we're looking at making some recommendations, we see that no precip fell in the low elevations, and even in the San Juan mountain range, only marginal totals, mostly less than 1/10 of an inch. So you can think about precipitation as a two-sided coin, where the other side is the amount of water vapor demanded by the atmosphere from your surface hydrologic system. So the hotter it is, the drier your surface conditions are, the windier it is, and the sunnier it is, the higher that evaporative demand is. And if we take a look at the evaporative demand drought index, where these red colors indicate above average evaporative demand over the past week, we see that evaporative demand was indeed elevated over the Four Corners region over the past week. If we just take a look at temperature for the western U.S., we see that it was actually a cooler than average week, so you might think it's a little strange that evaporative demand was high, but it was a dry and at times windy week. So how about precipitation longer term? One dry week where evaporative demand is high wouldn't necessarily be that concerning in this region, especially this time of year where things are starting to go dormant anyway, and the hydrologic system moves pretty slowly. Stream flows are at base flow conditions. Reservoirs aren't recharging or releasing at particularly high rates. So let's see if these drier than average conditions are reflected over a longer time period. If we look at 30-day precipitation, and here SPI stands for Standardized Precipitation Index, and these warm colors are areas where precipitation has been below normal, we also see that over the last 30 days, in the southern part of the upper Colorado River Basin, or near the Four Corners region, precipitation has been lower than average, as opposed to areas east of the Continental Divide and just further north and northeast in general. What if we back out to 90 days? You still see that dryness shows up at the 90-day time scale. And then if we back all the way out to 6 months, this is where you really see the dryness in western Colorado and the upper Colorado River Basin. And you see that the Four Corners region, which is currently not depicted as abnormally dry on the U.S. Drought Monitor map, reflects these conditions. Areas that are currently in D0 are showing similar 6-month standardized precipitation index values. So how has our surface hydrology responded? First, we'll take a look at modeled soil moisture, where here our scale is in percentile rankings, and these warm colors are showing 30th percentile or lower, which matches well with the U.S. Drought Monitor drought map colors. And we see that drier than average soils are indeed creeping into the Four Corners region, and they're similar to regions that are also already depicted in D0 or abnormally dry conditions further to the north and northwest. And then if we take a look at remotely sensed vegetative health, measured by satellite, we're seeing pre and moderate drought conditions in the Four Corners region, which is also what we see in areas further to the north and west. And these areas are currently already in D0 in some cases, such as Uinta County in Utah, already in D1. Now, how bad are things really? Well, if we look at some other indicators like stream flow and reservoirs, we're going to start to see that conditions aren't dire in the region. We do see some scattered sites that are recording below average stream flow right now in the Four Corners region, which is consistent with our overall appraisal of D0, but stream flows aren't off the charts bad. Most of the stream flows in the area on rivers such as the San Juan and the Animas and the Dolores are in the normal range. And then if we take a longer term look at things, we can look at reservoirs in the area. McPhee Reservoir feeds a lot of the agriculture in the area, which is irrigated. And as you can see, reservoir levels are dropping at McPhee Reservoir, but reservoir levels dropping is characteristic of this time of year. They may be dropping a little more than average, but we're still hanging on to above average storage in McPhee Reservoir. Other reservoirs in the area include Navajo Dam, which is flirting with that below normal range, and then Lake Powell, which is driven by a lot more than just short-term conditions in the immediate area, but has recovered into the normal range this year. So overall, things not looking terrible in the Four Corners region, but things are poor enough that we're going to decide to degrade just a small area of mostly southwest Colorado, including little fractions of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico to D0 conditions this week. Thanks so much for listening. Once again, I've been Peter Goebel. This is brought to you by the National Integrated Drought Information System, and we'll see you next time.